Hey guys, Ryan Hodge here, CEO of Black Folk Hotspots. Today, with our SBB TV, Support Black Business, Business Spotlight, we're talking to Charles R. Smith, who is candidate for mayor of Gary, Indiana. And I wanted to bring Charles on to talk about the number one, the things that he sees and how to move Gary into the into the right direction. As many of us have already talked about on Facebook and in person, how we don't see the improvement, and it has to be a good plan. But we want to hear Charles' plan, so I'm not gonna inject my opinion in this. But Charles, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thanks. How about yourself?
I'm doing unbelievable. I want to thank you for coming on to share your views for what you have if you're elected mayor of Gary, Indiana, which is coming up here. What's the election day is November 3rd? November 3rd.
Yes.
Perfect. So we have a few months to get that out there. So let me ask you this. What made you run for mayor of Gary? What said, hey, I need to run for mayor of Gary?
If you, the most interesting thing that you can have is a conversation with anybody who does not live in Gary. Their perspective of Gary can either make or break a complete stranger to come to Gary or run away. So you have those who say, I go to the beach and get in and I get out. You have those who have relatives who live here, or those who used to live here. Driving through Gary used to be a treat. It was a beautiful place. The people were happy and great. Now you drive through Gary, Indiana, trying to get out in a hurry. We still have wonderful neighborhoods where people maintain their properties. The businesses that are here are trying to maintain, but with the politics in the way, the businesses cannot succeed. The taxes go up and down. You don't know how you're going to make ends meet. People are running out of Gary like water going out of your faucet. That being said, if you look at all the empty schools, that tells you how many people are not here with children. So I had to make a decision. Either I'm going to stay and try and help, or I'm going to pack my bags and run away. Now, for those who have a clue about Gary, it is some of the most pristine property, prime property you can find. You're right at the lakefront. You are 40 minutes at best from downtown Chicago. You're an hour away from the O'Hare Airport. I can go anywhere in the world nonstop from O'Hare. It's cheaper to live in Gary and enjoy it than it is to live downtown Chicago. So there's just so much going on everywhere but Gary. I figured, you know what, I live here. Why not do better and become part of this wonderful growth that Northwest Indiana is exhibiting? Every city around Gary is growing. Why is Gary not growing? And my personal belief is the politics are just in a way. It refuses to let Gary grow forward, and I have to change that.
You know, I keep hearing that and I agree with everything you just said. I mean, in my personal opinion, that's just what I agree with. And I've been outside of the city of Gary. I've lived outside of the city of Gary in other cities. And just last year, you know, I spent a significant amount of time in Dallas, in San Antonio, in Atlanta, in Nashville, Chicago, and Seattle. And one of the things that struck me with each one of those cities that I spent time in, and I spent several weeks, was I saw construction trucks.
Right.
and that's something that I very seldom see when I came home. And I was in business in Atlanta for 2 years. You know, I was coming back and forth because my daughter's, you know, in the area, but I drove down Calumet Avenue from Munster. I drove from 45th to the Expressway. And I was amazed by all the new stores, all the new businesses that had located on, right by that Hammond Clinic and up down that road. And I'm like, what is going on? So I keep hearing that it's state stuff. I keep hearing that the state's holding us back. What's your opinion on that?
My opinion is, well, let me say this first. You have Hammond, you have East Chicago, and they are growing and rebuilding by leaps and bounds.
Mm-hmm.
We have two casino boats. We're not growing by anything. Heck, we're going backwards. If you go to Portage, Portage is beginning to look like Munster with all the new businesses along Route 6. So we can blame everybody that we want to blame, but when we look seriously at ourselves, Gary's to blame for Gary. Leadership dictates that we have growth. It is ironic that during election time or at election time, you get a few potholes filled, you get a street paved, and they start striping. You get a big to-do about a new business opening. We should be having a new business open every week. The city is almost completely void of any new activity. And so what we do is we say, it's somebody else's fault. But when are we going to take responsibility? So it would be different if Hammond, East Chicago, Maryville, Sherrville, and everybody else was failing, and we could say, yep, we're all in the same boat. You cannot drive every place else and see their failure equal to ours. So if our leadership isn't doing what it's supposed to do, no, we're not going to grow. If we're not spending the money the way we're supposed to spend it, we're going to continue to fail. If you disrespect your fire and police officers, you ain't going to make it. Our policemen are leaving here like water running out the faucet. So we can blame everybody else, but the honesty is that Gary is not doing right by Gary.
And why do you because these are people that are in office at the top. These are people, if we look back in I was born in 1972. So I'll be 43 in October. And as far as I know, every mayor we've had since I've been born, it was Hatcher, Barnes, King, Clay, Freeman Wilson.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm missing one. Dozier for 2 weeks. That was a joke in itself. But so and as far as I know, now I don't know King, but I know that Hatcher was born and raised in Gary. I know that Barnes was born and raised in Gary, as far as I know. Freeman Wilson was born and raised in Gary, as far as I know, and so was Clay. I hear them in this. I love this city so much. I love this. But to me, it's like an abusive relationship. Where the man keeps telling the woman, "I'm hitting you, yeah, but I love you." It's like, what is? Because that's why I keep saying, it has to be a stopgap, because everything you just said, all the other cities are growing around us, and is it that the other cities are trying to stop this? Because if they can grow, then they're going to get all the dollars out of Gary. What do you think? What would you do as the mayor? How do we get part of the economic growth?
First of all, we have to make Gary
You still there? Hold on, we'll bring him back. So you're listening to Charles R. Smith, who's a candidate of Gary. And just like everything else, sometimes we have technical difficulties, but you know what? You got to look at a way to to solve those things. So we'll bring them back in. We had them by phone. So you know how that could be when you're dealing with technology, calls drop, things like that. So we'll bring them back in.
Good afternoon.
Hey, Charles, Ryan.
Hey.
Okay.
Good to hear from you.
All right, we're back. Okay, so we're talking about the economics of Lake County and even in Porter County, because Porter County is so close. They might as well, Portage might as well be a part of Lake County, in my eyes. Because what do you think the problem is that money is not staying inside the city or is leaking out? Because that's another thing. It's always we have no money. I hear fire, they haven't gotten raises in 10 years. The police, like you said, they're leaving here, like as fast as they coming in. So what's the deal here? What's the plan?
Well, let's say it like this. If you were to look at the palm of your hand and put Gary in the middle, everybody around us is growing. And everybody around us is growing, and we're not doing what we're supposed to do. So, how can I put it? I can put it like this. Hammond was smaller than Gary. East Chicago was smaller than Gary. Hobart, smaller than Gary. Lake Station, everybody. They found within their means to start off whatever project they needed to resolve and grow from it. So they took a project, have a long-term plan. They decided they were going to be successful. You look around, and they're all successful. We don't do what we're supposed to do to complete any project. If you don't have people in your city, your business can't survive because there's no money. If the right business is not in your city, those who live in the city have to go outside of its boundaries to buy the necessities. So you're going to support the economies of everybody else because you don't have a choice.
Mm-hmm.
And they feel that, you know what, they don't have nothing. I can charge them the way I want to, and I can treat them as badly as I want. They last about 3 to 4 years. They fail because the customers decide no more bad treatment. So if we take care of our city, if we do what we're supposed to do, if we open businesses, if the city supports those businesses, and we have new housing, and we rebuild the neighborhoods will support those local businesses. Stores and businesses come into a city based on population. If you have no population, those major stores that we think we want can't come in because they know that economically we cannot support them. But in the same light of that, you turn your head slowly, and there's a truck stop being built brand new.
Mm-hmm.
There's not enough money in truck stops. The city doesn't make enough money because they're not hiring enough people. The taxes, you can get more money on more activities than you can a lot to park your trucks. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I do.
All right. So now, if everybody else is utilizing their exit off of one of the world's busiest highways to make money, why aren't we? If we feel that the city isn't being prosperous, we can't get businesses in, you can darn sure get a business off the highway. Look what Walmart just did at Hammond, right off of Indianapolis in '94. So all you got to do is put the right business at the right place, you will be successful. So you bring a business in that will draw more business and more people. If ever you look at a new development, they have this anchor store, whatever it is. It could be a Dollar General. It could be a Subway where they have an anchor.
Mm-hmm.
And then people follow behind it. You get more people to come in. You get more shopping. You get used to shopping. You grow another business. We don't do it. We don't have, as far as I'm concerned, a legitimate, solid land use plan so that a businessman coming in knows exactly where to put their business to make profit.
I'm gonna recall a conversation I had at a restaurant on Lake Street, the Chinese restaurant that used to be on Lake Street. I think it's closed now. Ming Ling's, I think it was.
That's
Um,
right.
I was I was in there. This was probably, man, this was probably oh oh seven, something like that. And I was sitting there just after work, and I was, having a drink, and it was probably about four people in the bar side, and just watching sports center highlights or whatever, or baseball game I think might have been on, something like that. But there was a guy across from the bar and a guy sitting in the back, and they were having this conversation, and I was like ear hustling. I was listening in because one guy I think worked for the city, right? And I think he might have been in redevelopment, if I'm not mistaken. The other guy, so they kind of like knew each other, or maybe had just met, or like had asked him what he did. I didn't catch the beginning of the conversation, but what struck me was the guy who sounded, it turned out that he was a developer, of subdivisions, housing development. And he asked the guy, he said, why is it that when I want to build houses in Munster or Cherville or Dyer, or, other cities around Gary, I can go in there and say, this is what I want to do. They give me a packet, they print it off or whatever, and they give me a packet and say, these are our requirements. This is our situation. He says,
They make it easy.
they make it easy. When I go into Gary, it's like nobody knows what to do. He said, it's chaotic. He was like, so as a builder, it's a mess. And the guy was trying to answer these questions, and they almost got into a little heated argument, because the guy wanted to say, this is crazy. If a builder wants to come in, it's like you putting them through an arm and a leg, and this person's trying to invest in the city, and it's a win-win situation. If you can get new houses, and we, then the residents have somewhere nice to live, we can build out whole new subdivisions, and now it's a win-win for everyone, the residents, the city, and myself as a business owner. And that has stuck with me for all these years. And I've come up with this chaotic thing, this chaos. And it made me think about when Jack Lesky, or Leisky, as I have nicknamed him, when he tried to run for mayor in the last election, I was like, this guy was a real estate developer, and I think that what he knew was, Gary can be something, but it's difficult to navigate unless you're on the inside. Because, I look at a mess. You go into and you see a filthy anything and stuff that's out of place, out of order. That's when more stuff can leak out, from theft to all types of things. Because I just don't think that a city has no money, and I know the mayor's office really pretty much has nothing to do with the school system, but I look at these schools and I see these failing schools. Now, I'm in that age bracket. I don't know your age, Charles, but I'm in that age bracket where a lot of my friends have school-age children. And
Right.
that is a major something with them. A lot of my friends are sending their kids to Munster. They're paying to send their kids to Munster, to St. John, to Crown Point, to Chesterton, to Portage. They're sending their kids outside the area because they want a quality education for their children. I talked to a buddy of mine who said when he built his house over there off of Taft, off of I think it's like 23rd and Taft, he said when him and his wife decided to build there, born and raised, there was an elementary school, there was a junior high school, and there was a high school.
Right.
Now there's nothing. None of those schools are there. And so now his property value has dropped, so much he can't even sell. So he's stuck.
He can, and see that's one of the biggest problems we have. If we're not building the city, the population keeps decreasing. You want a good education for your children, and you have to go where that education is. But when you get the machine, when you get the are not held accountable for not doing their job to the highest level. They just show up. And because they just show up, the quality begins to get less and less. So I'm a product of the Gary school system. I had some outstanding teachers. I had, as far as I'm concerned, some of the best in the work. And they made sure that I moved on to the next level, that I was on the right path, that I was going to be successful. And if they had a problem with a student, they dealt with that student and the parent. They said, look, we're here to help. Often we find that you get a little disillusioned. The teachers are not interested in the job anymore. It's not a career, it's a job. They're not saying, I'm here to make a difference, they're here to make a paycheck. They had another career in mind they couldn't get in, so they thought they would teach. So now what you have is a teacher who is not enthused about what they're doing, and the kid feels it, the student feels it, and nobody is getting education. You can feel that same vibe in city government. If you don't hold people accountable, if a contractor says, I want to build 50 houses, well, I don't know if you could do that. The contractor's going to say, wait a minute, I said 50. I'm going to buy the property. I just need to know what I have to do. I'm going to build 50 houses. I know people need a new house. Somebody from the city should raise every flag and say, look, thank you very much. What do you need? How can I help you? You don't bounce them around everywhere and say, I don't know, go ask the one on the left, the one on the left, or no, ask one on the right. If nobody has an answer, because they're not being held accountable, it means they were not properly trained, nor are they qualified. So the city as a whole has got into this thing where it's not what you know, but who you know. And being a part of who you know does not mean that you are qualified, nor does it mean you've had any training at all. So then what happens? Businesses run because they can't get any support. Schools start to fail because you're not getting the proper support for your children. Now, there are still some really good teachers in Gary. The question is, where are they? And they're probably spread here, there, and everywhere. They're not at one particular location. So, go ahead.
No, okay. So, and yes. Now that leads me to another question. I know the mayor's office in the Gary school system, you know, they run separately of each other.
Right, they're completely separate.
What I don't know, and maybe you can shed some light on this, does the mayor's office have someone sitting on that board? Do they have some type of input in the school? Because those two things run hand in hand. You cannot have a growing community with a crappy school system. In Chicago, they have great schools. There's great schools in some really not so great areas, but people will send their kids to those schools.
Right.
They'll move into those districts, you know. So, you know, I look at the fact that, you know, the parks are not, there's no parks, you know, and my thing is, and this comes from a business perspective, because I believe that a city should be ran as some, it is a business. It's a big business. It's a big corporation. There's a lot of dollars floating through, you know, and I'm like, you know, I counted, and my number could be off now with just my memory, but I went from 5th Avenue to 53rd in Broadway, and I only looked at the west side of the street, and I counted about 90 abandoned businesses all the way up. So if my math says correct, it's probably the same on the east side of Broadway as well. So, you know, even if it's a little bit off and lower, so we're looking at 150 to 180 total businesses just on the main corridor, which is Broadway, which separates the east and the west side. And I think to myself, what would the new mayor do? What's the plan? What would you do? Would you knock them down? Would you give them to people for $1 and say, hey, here's a property, you got a year to renovate it, you know, and put someone in it? Because I think that those tax dollars, and I think that at this point, I'm starting to think that we need to prove ourselves to someone, because to me, it seems as though we're banking on U.S. Steel, um, and maybe the casino boats, and I don't even know about that too much, but and U.S. Steel is steadily downsizing their workforce. So that's a problem in itself. I don't even know if we're still the headquarters. I don't know if they moved it out of here. I think I heard years ago that they may have moved the headquarters, sort of like Methodist did, and then St. Mary's, before they closed down, they had moved everything to the Hobart location. And from my understanding, I'm hearing that Methodist had done the same thing. So Methodist has moved, to the South Lake campus. What would you do? What was something that what would you do day one? What would be the first thing, as if you were elected? What would you do day one?
Well, day one is going to be the tough day. Day one is when you walk in and you make a public statement. And that public statement is Gary, Indiana is open for business. And you then tell every employee you're either going to put in a solid 8 hours that are very productive, or you can find someplace else to work. Even if you don't know your job, you can learn your job and be very productive. You don't get kicked out because you don't know, because someone didn't teach you. It's not your fault. But the city has to be open for business. Everyone has to know what they're doing so they can help those people who want to come in here and be successful. We also have to tell the world that, hey, any bad feelings that you may have about Gary, let's iron them out. Every city has its problem, and every city has its concern. Our new problem is not enough business. Our biggest concern is not enough business coming in. Then you get together with all the business people in the city and ask them, how can I help you grow? You're here, how can I help you grow? Now you have that moving forward. At the same time, you're talking to your redevelopment, your community development people, and you're saying the areas that are the biggest blights, that have the least amount of population, we need to figure out in the nicest way, and we have to pay people for their properties. We need to move them somewhere else to solidify another neighborhood. So if you go into a neighborhood and you've got 20 houses that are burned up, they get torn down, and you have 2 people who are trying to hang on, you give them enough money to relocate inside the city. You don't try to hurt them and say your house is worth $5,000, I'm going to give you 2. You give them enough money, or you find a house. The city owns so much property, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, that's another thing. Go ahead.
You move those people out of the neighborhood into someplace else to solidify another. You clean up all the blight and prepare it for new development. Well, as you do this throughout the city, you're now rebuilding communities, preparing the devastated ones for new development. And now you're telling the public, I'm here as a mayor to help you, not to hurt you. If you got a neighbor who won't cut their grass, that's what code enforcement is for. We're going to enforce the code. It's not them calling a friend and saying, hey, look, y'all called on me, let me not do something. Can you help me out? I don't care who they're related to. I don't care who they think they are. They got to follow the rules. If every city can do it, so can Gary. And it's the weirdest thing. Any place you go, all they ask you to do is follow the rules, and everybody's successful. You come to Gary and you say follow the rules. They say, wait, why I got to do that?
Exactly.
So if all we do is tell people day one, we're open for business to grow, to benefit the citizens of Gary and the businesses of Gary, it's a win-win. There is no request for donations. There is no request for favors. It is simply come in and rebuild Gary, Indiana so that you win. Ironically, there are different pockets all over the city where people are moving back here, and they're working really. It's pockets on the west, it's pockets in Glen Park, it's pockets in Midtown. But the city has to do their part. The citizens can't do it all. And then you have citizens who go to City Hall and say, hey, listen, I'm willing to volunteer my time. Will you allow me to clean the streets and clean the park? They got to fight to clean up the city. When you ask for equipment, you ask for help, the city should partner with them. As far as the school system is concerned, the city doesn't have any control, but the least they can do is have conversation. How can we help make it better? Because if the city doesn't do its part, nobody's going to move here, which means the schools have to keep closing. And with your school district and your government, why in the world is it that they keep raising their salaries, they keep making it top dollar, and we have nothing to show for it? So if you're making all this money and you're not paying the people that's doing the work their share, they start leaving too. So if I'm the mayor and I'm making hundreds of thousands of dollars, the police officer who is making a little bit of nothing, he does the grunt work. The police officer is going to go where nobody else wants to go. Everybody's running, and he's coming to protect you. Mm-hmm. Firemen the same way. Everybody put out the burning building, and the fireman is saying, I'm here to make sure nobody gets hurt, save your house or your business, and I'm not getting paid. It doesn't make sense.
It doesn't. So it doesn't make sense. And then I hear that the city council is the highest paid in the state. And that's
so what do we get for it?
Right, and that's upsetting. And to your point about the growth, you know, my thought process, and I've talked about this to others, and I've even posted this on Facebook. I said people are not looking to leave Northwest Indiana. They're looking to leave Gary. That's why Portage, Hobart, Lake Station, Maryville, Crown Point, East Chicago, Munster, Dyer, Schererville, that's why they're growing. Because it's now full, you know, lack of better things, it's full Black communities in those cities. People are moving. They're not leaving the whole area. They're just saying, hey, you know what? I just want to lay my head down at night and feel peace. I want my kids to go and have a great, you know, get a good education, if not great. And then they want, my friends are saying, well, we want to have the same type of childhood that we had. We want to be able to go outside. We want our kids to be able to go outside and ride their bikes and play basketball in the driveway. And so
and they deserve it. First, they deserve it. They ought to demand it, and not allow all this nonsense where the politician says, "You know what? I can't help it."
Now, one other thing, and I do have to bring this up because I know we're getting short on time. I know you got to roll in a little bit. You are a Republican candidate. Now,
I am indeed.
Okay. Tell people, help educate the audience on, because I know that Gary is a Democratic city, and I've heard millions of years, and honestly, I didn't know as a kid. It was like, hey, you know, that's what I heard, that's what I knew, Democrat, you know, and Republican bad, whatever. But I've heard a Republican would never get elected. Do you see that as the truth, or why? Why a Republican on a city level?
Well, let me give you a bit of history. Like most people in the city, you're born into being a Democrat. I even worked under Mayor King for a while and supported the campaign and did everything I could to help the city grow then and help them win the election. But at some point, through all the administrations, you start seeing a level of mismanagement. You see the things that are wrong, and you look at what happens, because you start saying, wait a minute now, how many different administrations had how many people going to prison? And it's the same machine machine. It's the same people who run it. And so you say, well, how can I make it better? You can't make it better because the machine won't let you. And so I decided that being a Democrat is what I was told to be. It's what I was taught to be. And I had no problems with it. But when the power brokers in the machine is doing more harm than it is good, sometimes you have to step out of the norm and do something different. In my case, stepping out of the norm and doing something different meant becoming a part of a different party. So now I'm a Republican. So being a Republican means I'm simply different by name only from a Democrat. So I'm the same person that everybody went to high school and elementary school with. I didn't change anything. My philosophies are still local about rebuilding the city. My reasons for doing it are real simple. I tease people I talk to. I live on a dirt road. There is no reason that the city of Gary should still have dirt roads, but I live on a dirt road.
Get out of here.
Okay? I live on a dirt road. I paid to put gravel down. Often the city will not plow. When they do try to plow, they block me in, so I have to go out and clean it up. So, yeah, it's not fun. Trust me.
Yeah.
So you try to figure out what's the benefit. Well, the benefit is doing something different. They tell you if you do the same thing time and time again, and you get the same result, you deserve the same poor result. So, ironically, if you want to talk about whether black or white, historically, before I want to say President Kennedy, most black people were what? They were Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Democrats got smart. They said, hey, look, we need to grab some of those votes from some of those people so that we can have power. And they did just that. And we all immediately became Democrats. So the party thing only because we're told so. If you watch enough commercials, the commercial tells you how to think.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have the tenacity, the desire to be independent, then you have to do other than the norm. So being a Republican does not mean I follow the national agenda. I do not. Being a Republican does not mean I'm following what the governor's doing. That's the governor's business, not mine. Being a Republican in Gary means I don't have any political debt to anybody. There are not enough Republicans to tell me what I have to do, nor have they tried. The Democrats can't twist my arm. They don't have any control. So what would happen is the citizens would get exactly what they've been asking for. A beautiful city, a safe city, a growing city, a viable economic city, and even to the point where I will work with the Gary Public Schools and all the schools, charter, private, otherwise, in Gary, to benefit them. Because if we don't work together, we are going to fail miserably. And so many of the past administrators have been so involved in self-gain that they forgot why they got elected in the first place. It wasn't about their pocketbook when they got in, at least you hope. It was supposed to be rebuilding the city. So I have to laugh, and I talk to my wife, and I tell her, okay, now this is going to be a hard road to hoe. We got a lot of work to do, and no, we're not buying nothing. That we're going to stay poor. We are in Gary, Indiana. It is a great place to live. Right now, there's not a lot of money here, but there can be, and we have to work hard to make it. I work with people, and this is what I feel bad about. When there are not enough jobs in Gary, when a person finally gets a job, they are treated badly. The employer is saying, I own you. You have no place else to go. I can treat you the way I want to treat you. Because you can't go nowhere else. That's not a good feeling. When you have no jobs and parents who have 4 and 5 kids have to work at fast food restaurants, and they're working 3 or 4 jobs just to make ends meet, we are failing as a city. It is in our best interest to legitimately rebuild Gary so that we have to pay a reasonable wage. We have to treat people fairly, and then we'll grow. We'll grow business, we'll grow housing, you can reopen your schools because you have the population. So it isn't that being a Republican is about somebody else's agenda. It's about Gary, Indiana agenda. Nothing else.
And I get that. Now, but what I also get, and I guess this is the tough question. We've heard all these song and dances before, right? Except we have from everyone, and even I've had debates and arguments and this, that, and the other, especially with that baseball field, right? Now, as people call it, the $45 million hole in the ground, but and I always say that baseball field has done its job. It's brought people in. It's done the job, and I'm a baseball guy. That's my thing, right? And I've been there. I think it's one of the best ballparks that I've ever, and that's including pro parks. It's in the top 10 ballparks I've ever been in my life. And the views are great. I love taking my daughter there when she was younger. Now she doesn't want to go. She has her own friends. But I would go and we would sit in the grass and take a blanket and let her run around with the other kids and play on the playground that they have, and all the seats were good. The thing is that I've looked at is there's no businesses around those areas, to retain any of the dollars that are walking back out of the city. So, that's my thought process. When you look at Comiskey Park on 35th, and Shields, I guess it is, it's not the greatest area in Chicago, but you see all the bars and you see all the different places. They're going to get some of that money before those people leave that city, leave that area.
And that's one of the biggest complaints. You see, I'd always tell people, if there's no place for me to take your money, you're not going to give me your money. So between Broadway and I-65, and I'm looking at the toll road and I-65 where people come and go into the city, from the baseball stadium, there are very few places that you can stop and buy something. The city should have found a way to set up somebody's mom and pop just so they could take $1. And if you take enough dollars, somebody else is going to join you and say, look, you're making a few dollars. I think I should start my business here as well. And then you'll get more people. Stopping, the more people you get. Stopping, the more businesses you grow. Now the guy doesn't want to leave the business, so he goes a house behind the business. We didn't encourage it. We didn't do our part as a city, because if we did, you would have used the baseball stadium as your anchor to rebuild that particular community. It just didn't happen. The question is why? Where'd all the money go?
Exactly, and that was my biggest thing, and that's my question. And when I ask these questions, I'm gonna tell you, I get screamed at, I get blocked, I get deleted, on Facebook, and they tell me, "Oh, it's not the place." I'm like, "Well, it's really public, and we're having this conversation." But if I always look at it, and real quick story, in the mid '90s, I was a medic. I worked for Carroll Township. I worked for Dozier. That's when I wanted to be in politics. Right, I wanted to be in politics before that until I worked for Dozier, and quite, huh?
That's what happens when you get a feel for what it's really like and all the nonsense. You start thinking twice about it.
I did, because I felt like I could make a difference. Right, I felt that I can make a difference, and at 22, 23 years old, or however I was at that time, I realized at that point I needed to be a millionaire, because I need to have the money. Because with the money, I can make the difference. And which, to your point, if we can create the power structure, because I said, well, why don't, if you look at all the gates of U.S. Steel, or even 4th Avenue, from people coming from the east side, Portage, Hobart, Lake Station, Chesterton, anybody coming off I-65 to get to the mills, whether it's US, whether it's middle, whatever it is, they are traveling that road. I'm like, where are the stores? I mean, the gas stations is down there, where a lot of them used to be black owned, but they're not well kept. I wouldn't advise my mom, my sister, my girl, anybody that I know to stop there to get gas.
Right.
I wouldn't. If they needed to go to the ATM machine, I wouldn't even advise them to go there. I would say, hey, keep going, or I'll get the gas for you. And that shouldn't be the case. Any of those things. And one thing that I've always said is I don't understand how nobody in City Hall in any of previous administrations have never said we need just one business. We need a coffee place somewhere close to City Hall. I know they do meetings. I know they have meetings. I know they have people. So even we're guilty. Everyone who's been in office have been guilty, because I know that if any high-end people come in, any contractors come in, they say, hey, I want a good cup of coffee, they're going to have to travel all the way to Maryville to Starbucks, or Portage to Starbucks, or Highland to Starbucks, or to get a good cup of coffee. That in itself, I always believe that in itself will even if the city bought it and and worked as a co-op with school age kids.
And that is a very vibrant and a very wise thought. There are enough not-for-profits out there that the city could say, listen, the city is in the business of helping you make money, helping you grow. So I wouldn't go into business as a city, but what I would do is find myself a not-for-profit or two who wants to come in to train the children, to train the youth and the young adults, and grow businesses along any corridor. You are right, but you also have to realize that when a politician loses sight of what they're there for and why they're there, all development stops. If the city had a solid development plan that said this is how we're going to move forward, and they made an ordinance out of this development plan, then you would see growth. But instead, everybody comes in with a new idea. They stop the other plans from moving ahead, and then there's nothing. All the money that was spent in research and development and whatever else goes down the toilet. So you're never going to move ahead. And so if I am so bent on being important as a politician, now I'm filling myself full of all these wild, grandiose ideas that I'm important. You're not important as a politician. If I become mayor, I know that all I had to do is travel 30 miles outside of Gary and say, hey, I'm Mayor so-and-so. They'll be like, and? What do you want? Because there's no importance. I don't have any power or any authority over their city. I'm just the next nobody. I'm another citizen in their city. But when they come here, they get their heads full of all of this nonsense, and they forget to build the city for the people who count, who matter most. And that's the citizen who elected them in the first dark place.
And is that because they're not worried about either not getting kicked out, recalled, or any of these things because they are the Democrat? Because you being a Republican, I know there's some independent candidates running this, that, and the other, but and also,
still here.
And can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and I know that there's some other independents and things like that I believe that I just look at it. Are they not worried about? I often ask this question: who's the mayor of Crown Point? And the reason why I ask that question is very few people know, because in Crown Point, if a person comes in and say, hey, I'm gonna do this, and this, and they don't do it, they're not winning another election. You still there?
There you are. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Still there?
Still here.
Okay. What I was saying was, I often joke and ask this question, like, who's the mayor of Crown Point? Right. And because, if that person runs and says, hey, I'm going to do this, and this, and they don't do it in that 4-year time frame or 3-year time frame, that they're voting that person out. And I believe, no matter who it is, I think they should always be on the hot seat. I'm a business owner myself. my goal, my thing is to provide for my clients. If I don't provide for my clients, I can't expect for them to keep paying me for something I'm not doing. And I think that we're paying this mayor to do certain things, and I don't see, no one sees any improvement. I said I would be better. I would think better of it if there was a roadmap on the website that said we're doing this, and this is estimated data completion.
And they should. But see, when you do what you speak of, and that is to have a roadmap, to have a solid plan, you take all the garbage out, you take all the illegal activities out. What you also do is you grow a city. Now, when you grow a city, it means I got people from LA and New York and Denver and Timbuktu, wherever else they come from, with different mindsets. It means that when they come here, I'm not doing my job as a mayor if they're going to fire me because they don't care. They just want to see growth, very much like Crown Point. I have a feeling that in some cases they keep the city poor and down and trod because nobody knows any better, and they're going to keep voting the same people and hoping for a miracle. But if you're bringing a whole lot of new people, they don't have any allegiance. They don't have any alliance to a particular person. They're about self-worth and self-gain. And so I sometimes fear that if you bring the new people in, the old guard is saying, oh, wait, don't bring them in. They're going to kick me out. I got to maintain power.
That's a great point, because that is a very great point. Excellent point. Because about, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 months ago, I said that I was taking donations. I was gonna do a GoFundMe so that I can get I can rent a coach bus, and I was gonna take all the politicians on a tour of Lake County, and I wanted them to see, Calumet Avenue, 45th Avenue, Route 30. I wanted them to see Portage, Route 6. All the new things. I want to see. I said, because obviously they don't see this growth. They can't. They must never leave their street. They must go from their street to City Hall, because there's no way you could see all this growth in all these other places. Now, I know they all have their individual problems, but you see growth. And if I can see growth in something, then I know that, it's no different from me planting a flower. If I can start to see it root and taking root, yeah, I know it's going to take time before it's a tree. But
I've often wondered, now, if I am the mayor of a city, I am responsible for driving through my city to say hello to my constituents and see what they're dealing with. So each time I hit a pothole, I think that has that pothole repaired. Or I say, wait a minute now, so many potholes on the street, I can't repair the pothole, but I can fix the street. If I drive down the street and the trees are overgrown, everything, so you can't see nothing, I need to find out how to get those trees trimmed up or cut down. Because as mayor, I'm supposed to know what's going on in my city. I'm not supposed to be self-serving to go from my job to my house and say, oh, those poor little people down below, maybe they'll figure it out later. I am supposed to, as mayor, find out what's wrong and fix it. And I'm not supposed to have an excuse. I'm supposed to have a solution.
Always
I have that kind of mirror.
Always a solution. Well, Charles, okay, so maybe we can circle back at another date. I know that we went over the time that you allotted us, and then we can come back and do some other things. Do you have any functions coming up? Any fundraisers? Is there anything people should know to get more information about who you are, about the solutions and things like that? Is there anything that people should know?
I'm working on a Facebook page and a website, and I'm moving a little slow. And people say, why are you moving so slow? We have the shortest memories that I can even imagine. I asked people about the November election. They said, there is no election. The election was in May. I'm not voting again. We have been brainwashed to believe that there is but one election. So I'm moving a little slow. I will be blasting the world, in so many words, with information and who I am and what I'm doing within the next actually at the beginning of September. And it's only to keep me in their face, in your face, so that you'll say, oh, that's that guy. I don't want somebody to say, today, I heard that guy, and then come November, never heard of that guy.
Exactly.
I need this in everybody's face from now on. So it's like a snowball. I'm rolling up the hill. When I get to the top, this big old monster, when it comes back down, it is going to be something to contend with.
Charles, I'm gonna tell you, I wish you luck, and that truly comes, from the bottom of my heart. And no matter what happens, and I kept thinking this all throughout while you were talking, is that even if you don't win, I hope that the mayor says, you know what, Charles, I need you a part of this administration. I need your vision. I need your preciseness, because I think that you have the tone, and I mean, I see things, and I saw that the last time that you ran, it was just something about it. I mean, I just, and I was talking to other guys, and that's when, like, WLTH, the Real Talk guys, were still in effect, and whether they admit it or not in person, and I don't care, because I know what we talked about, and they were really impressed, and because we need to do something. I mean, it's just so crazy. My daughter lives in Chesterton, and I ride her all the time. I tell her Chesterton is the worst city in the state of Indiana, and she tells me, "Oh no, it's not. It's the best." But you know what? They instill that. They talk about it in the schools. They have programs to say, "Hey, we are a school," or her elementary school. We are top 10 public school in the state. To the point where it made me feel good. Like, wow, she's this is what she's around. Even though I don't, I still go back and forth with her, because I'm like, Chesterton is Chesterton, but they instill that.
You're right. If we were to brand the city in a positive way, and not brand the politician, we would be somewhere. But it's always about the politician being in the forefront. The politician doesn't count. I can't say that enough. Just can't.
Exactly. Well, hey, I really appreciate you. I'm gonna follow with you. I'm gonna put as you get the website and all that stuff rolling. I'll put it in the comments below so people can check it out. They can get. For now, I'll put your Facebook page if that's okay with you, so that they can get the information, so they can connect with you if they got. They have questions, they can inbox you or whatever. But I really do appreciate you coming on, bro. I really do. I just think that this is what needs to happen. And no matter what, it needs to be competition. It needs to be people out there. It needs to be people saying, hey, you know what? I'm coming from you. You're not doing the job that I think you're doing. Heck, I would love to see like what the Republicans are doing with the president. It's like a million of them running. I would love to see that same thing, a bunch of people running and saying, hey, you know what? I know I can do the job that you're doing.
Absolutely. And they can.
Right. And the very worst, I could be the mayor and do that. And I'll collect that $140,000 a year.
There you go.
And but I really do. I appreciate it. I really do appreciate you coming on, taking time out your day.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
It's been a pleasure.
It was. We'll talk soon. Thanks. And there we have it. That's Charles R. Smith, candidate for mayor. And as he said, as a Republican, it's different from on the city level. He doesn't owe anybody. And then, Lake County would have to play ball with him and not work on their agenda. So, it's up to you to make your decision. That's not my choice. I just know that sometimes there's fresh faces need to be had and fresh voices need to be had to get things moving. It's no different from leaving a bad relationship and then you realizing, whoa, this new one, I'm glad I left. But you can see the description. You can find out more about Charles. As he said, he'll have the website up and things like that. And if you have questions for me, you can, if you got questions, inbox them. If you got questions, leave it on the comments of the video. If you're watching this on YouTube, or if you sit on Facebook or whatever, leave the questions, and we'll get those things answered. We'll bring them back on to get those questions answered. Anyway, I want to thank you guys for listening. This has been episode 44. Later on today, we have a couple more Black business spotlights, because our goal is to help Black business owners get more exposure. We're helping business owners grow. So if you're a Black business owner and you're watching this, be sure to create a profile at blackfolkhotspots.com so that we can share your business and we can get you into our rotation, so that you can get more exposure, which equals more clients, more customers, and growth in business. Talk to you guys soon. CEO of Black Folk Hotspots, Ryan Hodge. I'm GI Operation on Twitter. You can find me there. You can find the links in the description. We also we have t-shirts, Support Black Business t-shirts. They're in the description, $17 for the t-shirts. So that helps us keep our programming costs down as well. Talk to you guys soon. Thanks for watching. As I said again, we appreciate you. Peace.